Hello, my name is Gabriela Arcangeli, and I'm a psychology and child studies major. And today I'm going to be talking about my thesis, Perception versus Reality, Navigating Perceptions of Parental Psychological Control and Its Impact on Adolescent Self-Esteem. In recent years, the dynamics of parent-adolescent relationships and their influence on a child's self-esteem have garnered increased attention within the field of psychology. The present study is a comprehensive investigation into the perceptual disparities between parents and adolescents regarding parental psychological control and the consequential effects on a child's self-esteem. This research aimed to provide valuable insights into the nuanced perceptions held by both parents and adolescents concerning the degree of psychological control exercised within the parent-adolescent relationship. The study addressed the following research questions. What are the perceptual differences between parents and adolescents regarding parental psychological control? What is the relationship between perceptual differences in adolescent self-esteem? And finally, what is the relationship between parenting styles and the perceived differences in parental psychological control? Now on to some background information. Psychologists have maintained an enduring interest in the multifaceted concept of self-esteem, which evolved from William James's early ideas regarding the interplay of personal achievements, beliefs, and aspirations to a contemporary definition of self-esteem as an individual's subjective evaluation of their worth. Self-esteem plays a pivotal role in an individual's self-concept, encompassing beliefs, attitudes, and emotions about one's abilities, appearance, and overall value. High self-esteem is associated with numerous positive outcomes, including psychological well-being, social adaptability, and effective coping with life's challenges. On the other hand, low self-esteem is linked with various psychological issues, including depression, anxiety, social isolation, and more severe conditions like eating disorders and substance abuse. Empirical evidence highlights the association between parenting quality and a children's self-esteem. For example, longitudinal studies reveal that parental warmth is predictive of increases in children's self-esteem, while exceptionally adverse caretaking practices have been identified as particularly detrimental to self-esteem development. This connection between parental behavior and self-esteem of children underscores the profound impact that early relationships can exert on an individual's self-concept. Now on to parental psychological control. Earl Schaeffer was a pioneering researcher on the topic of parental psychological control during the 1950s and 60s. In his seminal work, Schaeffer provided the foundational definition of parental psychological control: covert psychological methods of controlling the child's activities and behaviors that would not permit the child to develop as an individual apart from the parent. Schaeffer's definition underscores the psychological intricacies within parent-child interactions and served as the foundation for further research in this field, highlighting the psychological dimension of parent-child relationships. The concept of psychological control saw a resurgence in the 1990s, with scholars like Steinberg and Barber revisiting and refining it. Barber in 1996 further defined psychological control as socialization pressure that is non-responsive to the child's emotional and psychological needs, stifling independent expression and autonomy. Specifically, psychological control involves parental behaviors that are intrusive and manipulative of children's thoughts and feelings and attachments to parents. Barber, an expert in the field, developed 6 main characteristics of parental psychological control, which you can see on the screen. Across a wide range of measurements and diverse samples from different nations, psychological control consistently correlates with adverse outcomes for the child, including feelings of guilt, self-blame, tendencies towards confession, indirect expressions of aggression, dependency, alienation, social withdrawal, low ego strength, limited capacity for conscious decision-making, low self-esteem, passivity, inhibition, over-control, and depressed mood. Now, the interaction between parental psychological control and self-esteem. Studies conducted over the past few decades have examine the impact of perceived parental psychological control on self-esteem, and they've used individuals ranging from 6th graders to young adults, 18 to 29 years old, from diverse ethnic and racial backgrounds, and the collective findings consistently underscore the negative correlation between perceived parental psychological control and self-esteem in both adolescents and young adults. The existing body of research on this topic predominantly focused on experiences and perspectives of adolescents and young adults, overlooking the vital viewpoint of parents. This one-sided approach provides an incomplete picture of the complex dynamics at play with parent-child relationships. To gain a more holistic understanding, it is imperative to consider both the adolescents and the parents' perspectives. Adolescence is a period characterized by heightened autonomy seeking, identity development, and challenges to authority. These natural developmental processes often lead to a generation gap where adolescents and parents may perceive the same behaviors differently. Research has shown that it is quite common for parents and adolescents' perception of parenting to be different, with parents rating their parenting more favorably than adolescents. To advance our understanding of this intricate relationship, the present study will build on previous research by including a parent's perspective. By capturing the voices of both parents and adolescents, we can delve deeper into the underlying factors influencing self-esteem and gain insights into potential areas for intervention and support to enhance family relationships and adolescent well-being. To investigate these questions, a quantitative approach was used to assess the perspectives of both parents and adolescents regarding parental psychological control and its impact on adolescent self-esteem. The research encompassed 30 parent adolescent dyads spanning the ages of 13 to 18 years old. Data was collected through questionnaires distributed to parent adolescent dyads. The questionnaires included psychological control scale, youth self-report, and the psychological control scale, parent self-report, to gauge perceptions of psychological control, alongside the Rosenberg self-esteem scale to measure self-esteem and the parenting style questionnaire. The study also gathered demographic information. Now on to results and the discussion of the results. The results of the study shed light on the complex dynamics of parent-adolescent relationships, particularly in the context of perceived psychological control. A Pearson correlation analysis revealed a moderate positive correlation between parents and adolescents' perception of psychological control, indicating that higher levels of perceived psychological control by parents were associated with higher levels of perceived psychological control by adolescents. This finding stands in contrast to existing research that typically highlights perceptual gaps between parents and adolescents, with parents often rating their parenting more favorably than adolescents. Since all the parents in this sample have an authoritative parenting style, which is characterized by a balance of warmth and responsiveness, along with clear expectations and boundaries fostering open communication and mutual understanding, it is plausible that parents and adolescents share more congruent perceptions of psychological control, given the emphasis on communication and responsiveness. In such households, parents may engage in more transparent discussions about rules and expectations, potentially leading to a shared understanding of parental behaviors. Conversely, if the sample were more diverse in terms of parenting styles, including a mix of authoritarian and permissive styles, the dynamic might differ. Authoritarian and permissive parenting styles, which are characterized by different levels of control and warmth, could potentially contribute to greater perceptual differences between parents and adolescents. As a result, the findings may be reflective of specific dynamics within authoritative parenting styles. The present study unraveled the complexities in the link between perceived differences in psychological control and adolescent self-esteem, challenging the established research findings. In contrast to prior studies that consistently demonstrated a correlation between adolescents and young adults' perception of parental psychological control and their self-esteem, the present study uncovered no statistically significant relationship between perceived differences in psychological control among parents and adolescent self-esteem. This suggests that in this specific sample, variations in parent and adolescent perceptions of psychological control may not significantly impact an adolescent's self-esteem. An additional intriguing aspect is the positive correlation observed between adolescents' perceptions of parental psychological control and adolescent self-esteem, in contrast to prior research findings of a negative correlation. This unexpected result underscores the need for further exploration and emphasizes the nuanced nature of parent-adolescent dynamics within different family contexts. Based on the parent sum scores from the shortened version of Robinson et al.'s 133-item parenting style questionnaire from the California Department of Education, all 30 parents in the sample were categorized as authoritative. A linear regression analysis was performed to examine the predictive relationship between the three parenting styles and the perceived differences in parental psychological control. The overall model was not statistically significant. In other words, the results indicate that the combination of authoritarian, authoritative, and permissive parenting styles only explains a small amount, specifically 3.5%, of why teens might feel differently about parental control. Looking at parenting styles individually, none of the parenting styles significantly predicted the perceived differences in parental psychological control. This result is particularly intriguing given the research demonstrating a close association between authoritarian parenting and parental psychological control. However, a plausible explanation for this divergence could be the composition of the sample, where all parents exhibited a more authoritative parenting characteristics rather than authoritarian, which is normally associated with parental psychological control. This suggests that the prevalent parenting style within the sample may have influence the observed lack of significant contribution from authoritarian parenting to perceived differences in parental psychological control. This research contributes to the field by providing valuable insight for policy and intervention strategies, emphasizing the importance of fostering open communication within authoritative parenting styles and acknowledging the need for nuanced approaches to understanding parent-adolescent relationships. In unraveling these complexities, the study sets the stage for future research and interventions aimed at enhancing the well-being of adolescents and strengthening family dynamics. Thank you for your time and for listening to my thesis.